she talks about how much he loves her. Nothing about her love for him. Imagine being so hated by the magazine editor that wanted to turn you into a star that in their cover feature, they actually screw you over in such dramatic fashion that you may end up being stripped of your royal title. That is just what's happened overnight with this extraordinary cover feature on Harper's Bazaar with Meghan Markle as they claim that she's meeting her moment. But indeed, the reality of this feature is that Ms. Markle, even when she's acting as a private citizen in New York City, hawking her wares in order to fund her over-the-top lifestyle, even in a private apartment, she is introduced by the staff as the Duchess of Sussex. Yes, that's right. This is actually a completely mortifying feature. We're going to go through it all today. And of course, it is timed just as her public display of affection with Prince Harry in a cringeworthy Netflix trailer, which, let's be honest, is going to mark the final chapter of With Love, Meghan. It is timed to overshadow, once again, the real royals, because Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, showed what it was all about as they put duty first at the Royal Variety performance in London last night. And of course, we will get to that as well. But this is all part of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's ongoing war with the British royal family. And to pretend that isn't happening anymore is the height of naivety. And I could not be happier to be doing it today with Tom Sykes. He is the European editor-at-large at the Daily Beast, but more importantly, in the context of this show, you will know I talk about him often as the man behind the brilliant Royalist Substack, which is breaking scoop after scoop after scoop on the British royal family, and most importantly, to me, is no longer working in lockstep with the corruption of the royal rota. So, Tom, I mean, I said to you earlier, the royal story gods were looking down on us today, but we've got to kick off with this Harper's Bazaar feature. Because, Tom, a lot of people are saying, yeah, on the surface, the magazine might be trying to make Meghan look good, but as soon as you peel behind what's going on in this feature, indeed, she's made to look like a complete and utter moron, still using her royal title in the most extraordinary manner.
Yeah, hi Dan. Thanks so much for having me today. It came out late last night, our UK time, and the moment I read it, this line jumped out at me. So shall I just read it so people know exactly what we're talking about?
Please.
Okay. So the writer is called Caitlin Greenidge, and she does one interview with her first at a fancy hotel in Beverly Hills, where actually, when I read it again this morning, I noted she mentions that the PR is present, which is, as you know, as a journalist, an incredibly annoying and patronizing thing as a journalist to have the PR present. Then she says, this is the journalist writing, this is Greenidge writing, "We're in a grand brownstone on the Upper East Side that belongs to one of Meghan's friends, who I believe is Misha No, but when I enter, the house manager announces, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, even though we appear to be the only two people in the house." I mean, Dan, how I covered this last night, I said that, you know, I love a trumpeter to announce my presence when I go into the kitchen as much as any other guy. I'm sure you have a page who, you know, wherever you go, announces that Sir Dan Wootton is on his way. But it is an extraordinary anecdote. And as you say, tucked into what on the surface appears to be a very warm and sympathetic and frankly sycophantic article, in the way that, you know, often these American magazine articles are, because it's really all about getting the photos. I just think it's, I mean, yeah, it's an extraordinary bit of unfiltered snark, I think, from the journalists. Is the official American term for this.
Because, Tom, you had a very interesting take on this in the Royalist, because, of course, your connections to, you know, British aristocratic circles run deep. And you say indeed anyone who actually knows how titles work realize that the moment you're on American soil, they're completely meaningless.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? It's an American citizen on American soil. It's embarrassing. It's just really uncool, I think, to be using your title. You just look like sort of try hard. You look kind of, you just look ridiculous, you know? It's like Winston Churchill is a good example of this. He, on his American tour in 1929, wrote back to Clemmy saying, "Titles count for nothing with Americans." He observed that Americans care little for the trappings of aristocracy and introduced himself everywhere as Miss Churchill. I'm glad to say that's the end of my impressions
No,
for
I'm
today.
loving it, Tom. A man of many talents.
And I think what's always fun to look at in these contexts is how these things are sometimes approached fictionally, where people can have a bit more latitude. And of course, P.G. Wodehouse, one of the great chroniclers of the sort of transatlantic snobism, if you were, if you will, your guide to interwar transatlantic, pre-war interatlantic snobbery, P.G. Wodehouse. Um, he has this wonderful character who I'm sure everybody watching this will know, Lord Emsworth, who sort of pooters around his estate in up in the north of England somewhere, looking after his pigs, and is always being mistaken for the gardener by visitors to the house, you know, because he wears a battered old jacket. And of course, at home, he's called Lord Emsworth, and everyone refers to him as Lord Emsworth. When he goes to America, he becomes Mr. Threepwood, is his alias. And you know, Bertie Wooster always joking about how Americans, you know, it's no use waving a title at an American because they don't understand. And actually, Dan, to be totally honest, people that I know with titles do not use them in the United Kingdom either, because it's kind of like, I mean, maybe the first time you meet somebody, they might say, you know, this is my father, Lord so and so, or what have you. But very swiftly, the person will say, "Oh, for goodness sake, just call me." Do you know what I mean? Because it is old fashioned, and people, of course, do respect the tradition and all of that, and lots of people do like to be for it to be acknowledged once, perhaps, you know. But the idea that, and also, I mean, it's just so bonkers, isn't it? Because it's like you announce people's names in kind of costume dramas, like about what the world used to be like when they're arriving at a ball, not when someone else is arriving at your home. Sort of, it's so
100%.
crazy.
By the way, a very modern house, you know, if it is Mita Nunu's house, with a house manager. The whole thing is completely nuts. But there's a very serious side to this, Tom. And it plays into something that you have been reporting for a long time. And you wrote on this last night. I also think this behaviour makes clear why William, as the royalist was the first to report, is now so determined to strip the titles from Meghan and Harry in the fullness of time. If I am right, it is a spectacularly bad strategic move for Meghan to keep deploying these titles in blatantly commercial settings like this Harper's Bazaar feature. When the titles are removed, and they will be, especially if this kind of exploitation of them continues, it will be an even bigger story because Meghan has made such an enormous point of using them. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, absolutely, I have backed up your reporting on this. The titles are going to go. William simply hopes his father is going to have reason to do it before his death. That is looking increasingly unlikely. But I mean, I think we can all concede that there will be a time when Meghan will be Meghan Mountbatten Windsor or Meghan Markle, whichever she chooses, like it or not. So that's why this is so grim. Remember, we also saw it last year when she was sending a private gift and she was even using her HRH title, which is something that she had promised the late Queen Elizabeth II she wouldn't do.
Yeah, and you know what really annoyed me about that, Dan, was they sort of made out that they just promised to the Queen not to use it for commercial purposes only. But that statement from the Queen, which was issued after the Sandringham summit, which, you know, your producer would be able to pull up in a flash, I'm sure, like actually says they will not use the HRH titles. There's no equivocation or pretending that it's to do with commercial reasons or non-commercial reasons or private reasons. They were asked and agreed not to use the HRH on honorific. It's not actually a title in HRH, is it? It's a style technically, but they were asked not to use it, and they just went ahead. She just went ahead and used it, and I think it's just, I don't know. The whole thing is like, I don't know. And then this whole article is all about like how authentic. There we are. You know, they
It was absolutely clear. It was absolutely
yeah,
clear. And I mean,
yeah.
the thing that I think is also so fascinating, Tom, is that, of course, at the same time, we have a very strategic, I don't think it's going to work, but a very strategic bid to try and suggest that everything is completely fine between Harry and Meghan. They're more in love than ever. So we get, just before the release of the Harper's Bazaar cover, the drop of the Netflix trailer, which includes what I believe is a very awkward kiss between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. He feels deeply uncomfortable in this moment. You know how much he's struggling at the moment, Tom, with the loss of his hair. And I mean, they've done him no favors there, because the lighting is right on the crown, which makes his thinning hair look worse than ever, actually. And yet she's still put that out as the image going to the world. Then in the Harper's Bazaar article, Tom, what's really odd, and have you noticed she's done this a lot? She talks about how much he loves her. Nothing about her love for him. So I just want to read you out this passage from the feature, where the reporter for Harper's Bazaar writes, her circle of trust is tight. She puts her hand on her heart when she talks about her husband. He loves me so boldly, fully, and he also has a different perspective because he sees media that I wouldn't. No one in the world loves me more than him, so I know he's always going to make sure that he has my back. With Harry, Meghan explains, you have someone who has just this childlike wonder and playfulness. I was so drawn to that, and he brought that out in me. That's translated into every part of our life. Even in business, I want us to play and have fun and explore and be creative. So, Tom, I really do think this is worth breaking down, okay? Because this is very odd, right? She's talking about her husband. Tom, she's not talking about a business partner and an acquaintance. They have actually professionally separated in recent months. So she's talking about her husband here. She doesn't say that she loves him at all. What she says is that she liked what he brought out in her. And there's also a couple of backhanded compliments here. Childlike wonder, she says, playfulness. Well, to me, the translation there is immaturity, actually. Yeah. And then did you see where she said, he also has a different perspective because he sees media that I wouldn't. Now, that is
What
definitely,
does that mean?
well, it's a dig, okay? It is absolutely a dig, because she tries to claim that she doesn't look at the tabloid media and everything. Now, I don't believe that, but Harry is obsessed with it. He is completely obsessed with it. He has like burner accounts on X where he goes on and he looks at what people are even saying about him on social media. So she is making a dig
This is
at
why
her
you need
husband
Dan
there.
Wootton. I was looking at that line saying he looks at media different, and I could not understand what it meant. But of course, you're absolutely right, Dan. That's exactly what it means. It's a kind of dig at him for reading the tabloids and reading the comments, which we all know that he does. Because do you remember in his famous statement, he complained that the comments underneath some articles had been rude about Meghan many years ago when they first made that statement. And that's a really, really interesting observation. I was looking at that and I was thinking, what a bizarre thing to mention in the context of your relationship with your husband. And as you say, it's an incredibly unusual description of a marital relationship, right? To say he really loves me, not to say we love each other.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I was really confused about that, what that meant, because he sees media that I wouldn't. But you're absolutely right.
And
Sorry,
also
carry on. I
playfulness
interrupted you.
and childlike nature as well. It just all rings true about the complete lack of an equal balance in this relationship, you see. And I mean, there are times actually where I think in this feature you see the real Meghan, and there's a lot of, I mean, there's a real attempt, I guess, to portray her as someone who is a kind individual, even though that anyone who's reported on her for a long time knows that she's not. So what they've done is gone to some people who are only going to give a positive take on her. So Meghan kicks off by saying, I like the community of work and the connection. I think a lot of it is in my DNA. It's an attitude in contrast with the current trend of valorizing a soft life, that is a life without work outside the home with an emphasis on ease, which requires its own level of hidden labor. You should do what works for you, Meghan says diplomatically. For her, though, when people start to see your work ethic and really understand how dedicated you are to things, how you are in one place, I believe is how you are in other places. So for me, that's how I show up when I do potlucks at my kids' school. That's how I show up when putting a party together for my friend who just had a baby. That's how I show up in my business. Now, again, Tom, that's the real Meghan Markle coming out, right? It's like ruthless ambition, absolute hard work and overachievement in her head in every aspect of her life. And what was clear is that the writer for Harper's Bazaar was trying to draw out a softer side to her. But no, it's like really competitive, right? Like even when I'm at Archie and Lily's school, I show up and I make sure that I'm bringing, the best spread of crudités. I don't know. To me, that was a really interesting line. And then they bring her friends in, okay? And so there's a bit of a coup here for Harper's Bazaar because Serena Williams has spoken on the record. You know, that's not something that's happened before, Tom. And she says, we love a good mimosa. We could talk for 100 hours and it feels like 10 minutes go by. And it's like, we never stop smiling. Then you've also got her other best friend, what's her name? Zajfin. Yes, who says she's funny. I think maybe that's surprising to people. Williams adds, we both definitely have a dry sense of humor. I think that's why we hit it off for no reason at the silly football thing. We were just like, why are we here to meet you? Apparently, and we've been lifelong friends ever since. And then Meghan says, I don't think things that feel over-realized, if you overwork the dough, it's not going to rise. And sometimes I think the stress that people put on moments, they are so consumed in them that you lose the fun of why you were doing something. Not everyone, and then someone, the producer for Oprah Winfrey comes in, which is very odd.
Yeah.
But again, to me, I thought that was so interesting, Tom, because again, there's a complete disconnect between how Meghan views who Meghan is compared to how everyone else does. Because, Tom, whatever you think of her, no one believes that working with Meghan Markle is fun, right? I mean, look at the litany of bullying allegations, right? On both sides of the Atlantic, from within Kensington Palace, within Buckingham Palace, but also within Archewell. So it's like, and also there's nothing about the way that she talks that suggests that she is fun either. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is serious. Even the potluck lunch at Archie's school is a serious business where she shows up and proves that she's the best.
It reminds me, Dan, I had a friend who used his most withering put down that he could have for anybody was, well, he's a jolly nice chap or she's a jolly nice woman or whatever, but I wouldn't want to be a fellow parent in the pony club with her. And I slightly feel about Meghan, you wouldn't want to be a fellow parent at the potluck lunch, would you? I mean, it is weird, like the whole sort of like, I'm going to be the greatest parent ever. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, and the kind of need to sort of tell everybody. And it's really, really, it's actually, the more I look at it, it's actually a really intelligent piece of writing because it's coded. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
it's
saying one thing on the surface, but actually when you read it again, it's saying something quite different. And when you read it a third time and you take bits out of it, you can actually see that the writer actually, look, I do think that the best ever piece about Meghan was the New York Magazine piece in The Cut, because I think that she so arrogantly assumed that they were just going to roll over and write exactly what she wanted. And the journalist, whose name escapes me, but the journalist who was brilliant writer, wasn't having any of it, and just told the truth about like how she behaved and how she behaved to other people and her arrogance and all these kinds of things in a very, very frank way. And it was an absolutely devastating portrait of Meghan. I thought that the Vanity Fair piece earlier this year, to me, that was sort of more of a bit of a cheap hit job in a funny kind of way. I thought it felt a bit unworthy of Vanity Fair. It wasn't quite there, I didn't think, in the same way. This piece is really interesting because when you first read it, you think, oh my God, they've just run all this sycophantic stuff about letting the dough rise and turning up and showing up and being authentic. And another really interesting thing that the writer does, did you notice the bit where she talks about her family and her background and her childhood and her mother? And what the writer does, I think, very, very cleverly, is emphasize the mother so much that the absence of the father kind of floats to the surface in a kind of slightly
Oh my God,
mysterious
I
kind of
know.
way.
I just kept thinking that.
I don't think you can read that stuff about the mum without thinking, what about your dad? And for those of us who know the story of Thomas Markle, I know he is certainly did not behave, without any fault at all. And he did take money to pose for pictures, and he
Yeah,
probably
as she does,
was
and
foolish.
as she always
And,
has.
and indeed, but at the same time, he wasn't properly supported. Um, and it does appear from every account that I've read that he did try and do a lot for his daughter when she was younger.
Yeah, but I
And
think she was also digging out Doria, to be honest, because Meghan makes it really clear that she's nothing like her own mother. She's nothing
yeah.
like her. And again, that to me was really telling.
Yeah, like all the instant food stuff. I don't think she talked about this time, but in the past, I've really noticed that. All the like, I had to come home, watch telly on my own, and put food in the microwave, and I only learned about cooking from watching TV. Has always felt like weirdly double-edged to, for Doria, who so often gets all this praise and that kind of stuff. But
And
but
also,
I
you
do. The
see.
more I think about it,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
You make your point, Tom.
No, I just the more the on rereading it, there are definite layers to
Oh
to
no, there
this
are.
to this piece.
There are, because I wanted to go into a couple of them actually, because it's where the writer gives some color about the fact that they're meeting at the Polo Lounge, which is this very exclusive, famous old school Hollywood restaurant at the Beverly Hills Hotel, the Pink Palace. And they've chosen a very specific table there. And this was the choice of Meghan, not the choice of the writer. And she writes, it's a calculated choice as the site for my first interview with Meghan. We are ushered to a circular table in the corner of the garden, a prime seat where we can see the other diners and they can see the three of us. So Meghan wants to be seen. The restaurateur, Michael Chow, comes up to her and they have, a whispered conference. And I thought that was super interesting. The fact that Meghan clearly loves the fact now that she views herself as a Hollywood power player. Actually, most people at the Polo Lounge would ask to be at the most discreet table. Then the writer goes on to say a waiter comes to clear the table, but Meghan asks him to leave the fries behind. I ask her if she ever feels the need to compartmentalize the parts of her life, work and family. And she says, my office is right by the kitchen and I love that I can work from home. It's a great luxury. Her daughter Lilibet comes and sits on my lap when I'm in the middle of the meeting, whether it's about P&L for my brand or it's about something creative. When I ask Meghan what she hopes her kids see when they see her working, she tells me, I hope they see the value of being brave. They saw it when the jam was just a pot on the stove bubbling. When you're young, she adds, I think you are a little bit more fearless. As we get older, we lose some of that. And again, I'm like, the portrait that is being painted here, Tom, is not of a person who is very focused on parenting, as Meghan tries to make out in lots of her public statements. This is an absolute workaholic who's obsessed with status and obsessed with her job. Now, again, that's okay if that's what you are, but I would argue that's certainly not the impression that Meghan tries to give the world.
Don't you? I just if I never hear if I never hear Meghan talking about P&L again in the rest of my life, it'll be too soon. It's the way she sort of, you know, I'm sure, thousands and thousands of people watching this podcast, you yourself, Dan, me, we're all very, we're all very familiar with the concept of profit and loss. Do you know what I mean? It's not some like Harvard Business School. Oh, I've got to go through the got to go through the P&L, honey. I mean,
And trust
Jesus
me, Megan,
Christ.
yours ain't
Like, what are
looking
you
good,
talking?
okay? Yours ain't looking good. So probably the less you look at it right now, the better.
But like, what do you know what I mean? It's like this sort of faux, fake kind of like, I'm a businesswoman. I'm obsessed by looking at spreadsheets. I can't take my eyes off the P&L. It's like she reminds me of like one of those people who like is telling you about their business and starts producing more and more different colored graphs that show how brilliant they are and how this has happened and that has happened. And you're just like looking at it going, like, like, come on, like this is, I don't know, there's something that's sort of faux. I'm, really invested in the business side of my business, which we know, frankly, that Netflix is running the whole commercial side of the as ever business. For how much longer that will continue, I don't know. But like, it's just sort of, I just find it so weird that she just keeps going on, and I thought it was really interesting. These interviews was probably done 4 months ago or 3 months ago, but I thought it was really interesting how she keeps talking about authenticity. Or I've got to be authentic. I've got to be this. I've got to be that. Because one of the things I've been talking a lot about in the Royalist actually over the past few weeks is how there is this sort of authenticity crisis at the core of Meghan's brand, and whether it's using your jam tongs upside down, or whether it's kind of putting out, the sort of whole conflict between the children being in the business and not in the business, and their faces being blurred, but yet they're still in the photo to still generate interest. And there's this massive kind of crisis at the core of it, which doesn't matter, right? If you just have a normal business selling widgets, it doesn't matter if you're authentic or not. But if you are going to make if your whole business is predicated on, this is not a jam, this is like a little insight into my life, and it's a little piece of my life that I'm going to share with you. It's a very high stakes game, because you got to sell your whole image. And when people start to think that, frankly, you're having them on and you're not being straight with them, the trust and the confidence in the brand, like reputation, is won in drops and it is lost in buckets. And the
100%.
moment that you start doing these things, like lifting your jam, like you're claiming you're like the world's most fanatical jam maker, and you don't know how to use a pair of jam tongs. It's like, it's crazy. I'm not saying that I know how to use a pair of jam tongs. I've made jam, right? It's not very difficult. You get a load of fruit, a load of sugar, you boil it all up and you stick it in some jars, right? It's not very difficult. Like, people have been making it for like thousands of years, right? It's
But
not
she's
hard. Obviously, they
hitting
haven't been using
back,
sugar.
interestingly, Tom, at people like you who are saying she does have an authenticity issue. She does actually go there in this interview. She says, I love being able to do both, to play in the sandbox with my kids and to play in the front row at a show. I think the moment that you start making all of your personal decisions based on external judgment, then you lose your authenticity. So, I mean, she has gone there in a
What's she
way.
actually trying to say there? I don't understand. You're gonna have to use your brains to decode this for me. What is she trying to say
Well,
when
it's
you
interesting
start
because
making all of your personal decisions based on
then the
external judgment?
writer then starts saying, I mean, well, look, that is just a straight clapback, right, at critics. It's basically saying
Right.
F off. Do you know what I mean? And I believe, because this is the moment in the interview where she's had to admit, and I think it's mortifying, Tom, because the whole Paris trip was overshadowed by her totally grim decision to post this sort of Princess Diana inspired video going through Paris on a Saturday night. We covered it in depth, obviously, as did you. But it was then so mortifying because she had to admit that, the Balenciaga boss, Piccioli, had actually not invited her. She had invited herself. And she has to confirm that in the interview, saying, I was excited for him. I reached out and I said, happy to come and support you. You kept it a secret. And it was really fun. And so I believe what she's saying here is, you know what, to the critics, F off. But she's not actually quite prepared to go that far. And there is a lot of woke mumbo jumbo and double speak, because the writer says that she launches into a tangent about culture's deep and historical distrust of women's voices in public.
Yeah.
And she asks Meghan, she says, "You know what I mean?" And Meghan deadpans saying, "Well, yeah." So she's just clearly not prepared to go there. And so the writer says, "I tell her it sounds like she has good boundaries." And Meghan replies, "I think my boundaries became stronger once I came into the public eye in this very..." She pauses and makes a face similar to the one she made when talking about making mistakes and laughs. "I could think of any adjective to fill the blank and it would probably work. You find different ways to protect yourself, whether that's self-preservation or it's just growing up." So, I mean, what does that mean? I mean, it is totally meaningless. It is complete mumbo jumbo. I guess it is a small acknowledgement that she has made mistakes, but, you know, a very, very small one.
But it's like, it's that sort of faux, do you remember when there was like this wave of about 2-3 years ago, there was this wave of like, the most important thing you can do is fail. Do you remember all the books about how amazing failure was? And, it became like the ultimate humble brag, didn't it? Like, I failed so badly with my first business, and then I started the multi-billion-dollar one, And it's sort of weirdly like that. It's like I have only made these mistakes because I have been so brave.
But
and
I think she
followed my heart.
has no humility, Tom. I mean, think of the number of things she could be humble about. Do you know what I mean? I genuinely read this whole thing and I was thinking, is there going to be any sort of acknowledgement here? And there wasn't. There wasn't. No acknowledgement of what a complete career crisis this has been, going from one disaster to another over the past year. None of it. Tom, I've got to talk to you about the timing as well. And I do also want to speak about William and Catherine, because this is the problem, Tom. They knew... come on, when they met with Charles, all of the briefing, or when Harry met with Charles, sorry, all of the briefing was that we're going to stop these diary clashes. Now, she did not have to get Harper's Bazaar and Netflix to release literally at the same time as Catherine and William turned up to the Royal Albert Hall, doing their duty at the Royal Variety performance. It's not very often of late that we have seen them together at a black tie event. And it didn't work in the UK, interestingly, Tom, because if you look at these front pages, the Daily Express, the Times, and the Sun all used on their front page pictures of Catherine rather than the cover shoot of Meghan, which is a devastating blow for her, because remember last week it did work when she, or maybe it was a fortnight ago, do you remember when she went on set and leaked to the Sun the fact that she was returning to acting, and it pushed William off the front pages? But in this case, it didn't work, because I think what we have seen from William and Catherine at the Royal Albert Hall really was them at their best. And actually, Tom, just before I get you to come in, I want to show you this lovely moment, which is going viral at the moment, of William and Catherine meeting these two adorable twin girls at the Albert Hall.
You didn't, did you? Oh, are you excited to get to your friends? Yeah. Are you going to watch something? Yeah. Are you fans of Harry Potter?
Yeah, sort of.
Little bit. My kid is very sad. We're going to have to keep it a big secret. But I saw you guys because I said, I don't think any children could go because they were very sad. Did you for me? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You two look very good. You're very smiley.
Connections.
Tom, it was just one of those great moments. And there were so many of them last night. And in some ways, it is such a shame that Meghan is up to her usual tricks. And I don't believe it was a coincidence. Do you?
I don't know if they have a great deal of control over Netflix, to be really honest, but they certainly have a great deal of control over when Harper's Bazaar would have put that out. I think Netflix, you could argue that Netflix do what Netflix want and that they hold the whip hand in that relationship. But I felt that to release that on Harper's channels, on her own channels, literally as Catherine and William were going to the Royal Variety performance, I thought it was just really, yeah, it leaves a nasty taste, doesn't it? Especially if you're making this claim that you're trying to coordinate. But, we know that's nonsense because the palace have denied that they did coordinate, that Harry's thing was coordinated. So I think that it's pretty clear that the Sussexes want to continue this fight. But I mean, they're going to lose.
Oh, they are. Oh, they are. That's the thing. It's like they may have won this PR battle, but my God, they are losing the war. And I think actually, if Meghan had any sense, she would realize that this Harper's Bazaar cover has not been the victory that she thinks it is. But obviously, Tom, this feeds into a much wider discussion that I want to have now in terms of what's really happening within the British royal family. We are seeing a swift transition, and it's something that the mainstream media are not reporting on, but you are. So what we're going to do is move over to
Princess Catherine and the singer Jessie J shared an emotional conversation at this year's Royal Variety performance, where the two women spoke candidly about their experiences with cancer and the shock of receiving a diagnosis. Jessie J, who is 37 years old, told the Princess of Wales that she had recently been treated for breast cancer and said that the illness had profoundly changed her perspective. She explained that she simply wanted to give the princess a hug, noting that cancer often forces people to reconsider what truly matters. The two women embraced and discussed the difficulty of confronting a diagnosis so suddenly. Jessie J has openly chronicled her experience with undergoing a mastectomy, while Princess Catherine has been widely praised for her willingness to speak publicly about her own cancer treatment. Catherine's course of treatment was completed in January of this year, whereas Jessie J is still undergoing procedures after delays to a second surgery. During the show, Jessie J performed her new song, I'll Never Know Why, written in memory of her late bodyguard Dave, who died by suicide in the year 2021. Princess Catherine, who is 43 years old, told her that the performance was deeply moving. Jessie replied that the message behind the song was an important one, explaining that she missed her friend and hoped her work could help others facing mental health crises. Jessie also shared that she had been speaking with her partner, Channon Saphir Coleman, about the need to support men who struggle with mental health challenges and to encourage them to open up about their feelings. Jessie and Channon, who is 41 years old, welcomed their son, Sky Saphir Cornish Coleman, in May of the year 2023. After her performance, Jessie revealed that she had chosen to wear a black hoodie and sweatpants to represent how someone facing depression or emotional difficulty might feel. She said that many people in such moments do not want to dress up or put on makeup, but instead choose comfort as they cope with their emotions. Jessie added that the Prince of Wales had asked whether she would be willing to collaborate with him to promote open conversations about mental health and fight the stigma that often surrounds it. She said both the Prince and Princess appeared genuinely interested in supporting that message. This year marked the 6th time the Waleses have attended the Royal Variety performance together, and the first since Princess Catherine entered remission. Their 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, remained at home. Prince William and Princess Catherine spent nearly 40 minutes meeting the performers. Among them was Paddington Bear, who opened the show with a musical number. The life-size character is operated by 2 performers, one controlling the physical movements and the other voicing and animating the facial expressions. Prince William joked with the bear, complimenting its singing and remarking that its marmalade sandwich looked delicious. Inside the venue, Prince William spoke with Sir Stephen Fry, who has appeared on the programme Celebrity Traitors. William revealed that the entire family watches the show, telling him that all of the children enjoy it. The Prince also spoke with magician Henry Moulding, who had pre-recorded part of his act at Buckingham Palace. William said that he had not realised the magician had filmed inside the palace. Princess Catherine was equally engaged. greeting Hurricane, a performing dog who appeared on stage with handler Adrian Stoiker. She was told it would be the dog's final performance. Catherine also chatted with Christopher Biggins, who asked whether she takes her children to pantomimes. She said the family attends a local one in Windsor. Actress Sue Pollard complimented the princess on her lighter hair colour, and Catherine explained that it had simply lightened in the sunshine. Other performers included Catherine Jenkins, who appeared in a Union Jack dress with a flowing cape, and the band Madness, who performed alongside Grammy Award-winning singer Laufey. In celebration of the 40th anniversary of the Royal Variety performance, cast members from both the West End and Paris productions of Les Miserables delivered a special ensemble performance featuring Michael Ball, Matt Lucas, and Killian Donnelly. The event was hosted by Jason Manford, who took over presenting duties from Amanda Holden and Alan Carr. ITV is scheduled to broadcast the show next month. Beyond the glamour of the evening, this year's event held a deeper emotional resonance, marked by Princess Catherine's ongoing recovery and Jessie J's determination to raise awareness of mental health and cancer. Their meeting highlighted a shared commitment to compassion, resilience, and using public platforms to support those facing hardship.